Okay, so for those of you that missed my last video about this, basically what happened was my mom set up a play date with some random woman and her baby that were out walking in our neighborhood, and I barely even talked to this woman. My mom was the one that asked her to meet up for a play date, but when my mom told me about all this, she was like, "Oh, by the way, I'm not going. You have to take baby to the play date." And we had a big argument about it. I mean, I guess it wasn't like a big argument really, but whatever. We argued about it because I didn't set this thing up. And really, what my mom is doing is she's trying to trick this poor woman into hanging out with me, which is a stupid idea and it's not gonna work. But anyway, yeah, so we argued about it, and eventually I told my mom I would go, but only if she comes with me. And she agreed to that, so yeah, all that happened last week. Now, fast forward to today, and it's the day of the play date, so we're supposed to be meeting this woman at a nearby park at noon. Well, as soon as my mom woke up this morning, she was already complaining about feeling sick, and seriously, not even 15 minutes after she first woke up, she starts saying, "Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it today. You might have to go alone." And right off the bat, I smell BS. I know she's lying. I know she's faking sick. Okay, so I'm supposed to believe that you just so happen to be sick on, oh, would you look at that? It's the day of the play date. What a coinky dink. You just so happen to be sick on the day of the thing that you were trying to make me go to alone in the first place. Okay, yeah, that's believable. Like, I really can't understand how her brain operates. Does she actually think that I'll believe her when she does shit like this? Or does she just not care? I really don't know. I don't know. So I tell my mom, look, you set this whole thing up. We already talked about this. You set it up. You said you would go. We agreed we would both go. And I was trying to, because I could tell that she probably wanted to make a huge argument out of it. So I was trying to reason with her without setting her off, because I don't want baby growing up hearing my mom yelling at me all the time, because that's how I grew up, and you see how I turned out. But anyway, I'm trying to reason with her, so I'm like, we agreed that we would both go. That was our compromise. And she just wasn't hearing it. She was like, "I'm sick. I can't go. I don't have the energy." And I'm like, "Okay, how sick are you? You have a cold or what?" And then she says she thinks she has COVID. And at that point, I was like, "What do you mean you think you have COVID?" Because she was literally holding the baby while she said this. So I immediately took the baby from her and I started shouting, and I was like, "If you think you have COVID, then why would you be holding the baby?" And she was just like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I'm not that sick." And I was just like, you know, what can you even say to that? I could have sat there and broke it down to her logically how sicknesses work and how you could be contagious even if you don't feel sick. And I could have sat there and I could have reminded her about how she was just saying she's too sick to go on the play date, but then she contradicted herself and said she wasn't even that sick. But I figured, she's not operating on any kind of logical framework. She's just lying to my face, and she does not care if she gets caught. Because I guess she'll just continue to live in her delusions anyway, so in her mind she's getting away with her lies or whatever, and there's really no point in even trying to psychoanalyze her about this because she's lying, and I know she's lying, and I don't care. But I also don't want baby to have to sit there and listen to his two guardians shouting at each other. Because he doesn't understand words yet, or at least he doesn't understand much, but he can feel vibes, I'm sure, and he can probably tell that his adults are fighting, and that's probably not good for him. So I just walked away from the situation. I just held my tongue, and I walked away, resigned to my fate. Resigned to the fact that I was gonna have to go on this stupid freaking playdate without my mom, even though this whole thing was her idea, and I never wanted to do this in the first place. And I mean, maybe this is just my way of coping with the situation, but it probably is good for baby to spend some time with other babies because so far he hasn't really had a whole lot of socialization. So, I mean, in the end, I figured it's probably good for him anyway, so whatever. I'll just accept my fate and I'll go on this play date and I'll disappoint this random woman that probably is expecting to be meeting up with my mom and not me. So I got dressed, and oh yeah, this is another thing. My mom kept trying to help get baby dressed and everything, and I kept telling her, "You're sick, remember?" And she's just like, "Okay, whatever." She's retarded, so, and we'll just leave it at that. So I got everything together, and I got baby in his car seat, and we drove to the park. And I considered not even going, I thought about just going to the grocery store or something and walking around, but then I thought, ultimately this is probably good for baby, so I'll do it for him. I will do it for him. So yeah, we pulled into the parking lot and the woman was already there with her baby and they're sitting on a blanket in the park. And I know most of you probably can't relate to this, but like I've said it time and time again on this channel, but I have crippling social anxiety. So in a situation like this, I would normally already be extremely nervous to the point that I'd be sweating buckets and like I'd probably forget how to swing my arms like a normal person when I walk. And I know this sounds like the ramblings of a madman to any of you that don't have social anxiety like this, but that's really how it is. I literally am just so in my own head that I start to question basic things like, okay, so is my left arm supposed to swing when I step with my right leg, or is it the other way? And yeah, things like that. Like, I remember one time in high school, I was sitting in Spanish class and I really needed to clear my throat, and I couldn't remember how to cough. And I know, trust me, I know that doesn't even make sense to most of you, but that's what it's like for me. So anyway, that's me normally. But in this particular situation, it was even worse because I know my mom probably misled this woman into thinking she'd be meeting up with her. So this woman doesn't even want me to be there. And she'll probably think I set this whole thing up on purpose and I'm some kind of creep or something. At least that's what I was thinking. So I was extremely nervous just getting out of the car and approaching this woman. But I just kept telling myself, this is for baby. I'm doing it for him. And I just powered through. And it's kind of interesting because ever since I've been raising this baby, I've just felt kind of numb emotionally. And I think maybe it's just that I'm so sleep deprived and just so busy taking care of him, I just don't really have time to dwell on any negative thoughts like I usually would. So yeah, it's been a long time since I'd felt anxiety like this. But anyway, it actually ended up not being that bad. It was pretty awkward, especially at first when I walked up because she wasn't even looking in my direction as I approached. And so I had to say, hey. And of course, my voice cracked and my hey ended up coming out like a whisper. But whatever, she heard me anyway. And yeah, it was just like I thought. One of the first things she said to me was, "Where's your mom?" And I could just tell from her body language that she didn't expect me to come without my mom. So anyways, I just said, "She's sick." And that was that. Thankfully, she didn't seem too weirded out or anything, but the whole play date was pretty awkward. For one thing, the babies don't care about each other at all. We kinda tried to get them to interact with each other, but I don't know, I guess they're still too young for that. But aside from that, I don't know. This is kind of the story of my life, but it just felt like there was an awkward tension the whole time between me and this woman. And I know it's coming 100% from me because she was acting like any normal person would, but that's how it always is for me. And I don't know, I guess I just have this painfully awkward aura about me. Like she would occasionally try to make conversation, but it's like anything she said, I wouldn't even know how to respond. And it might be easier if she was asking me direct questions, but mostly she would just make a comment here and there, or she'd be talking about herself, and I couldn't think of anything to say to continue the conversation. So there ended up being some awkward silences where I think she expected me to say something, but the way it would go is she would tell a story or make an observation and then she'd wait for me to respond. But I was too busy panicking quietly in my head that I usually didn't even know what the hell she said anyway, so I had no idea how to respond, even if I had had the courage to say something. But yeah, like I said, it actually wasn't that bad. I could tell I was making her feel awkward, but for the most part, she just kept trying to make conversation. And I wouldn't even say she was being friendly necessarily, because after a while, I did kind of sense her attitude getting a bit colder, which is a natural reaction to having to deal with me. So I understand. But either way, she was pretty nice to me, I guess. I do think she was intentionally keeping her tone of voice kind of, I don't know the best way to describe it, but she was making sure she didn't say anything that might be misconstrued as flirtatious. You know what I mean? If you're sub 5, then you'll definitely know what I'm talking about, but it was like she didn't want there to be any chance that I might accidentally think that I might have a chance with her. But yeah, either way, I think the whole play date went pretty well overall. Nothing disastrous happened, and baby got to practice socializing a bit. So maybe he won't end up like me when he grows up.